Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
so
clear.
it's 6 p.m. here local time, and I believe it's
We
11
can hear you.
in Nigeria. So I would like to ask for permission from the organizer if I can start or if we can start.
Yes, sir, we can start.
Okay. Good day. My name is Muyideen Abdulkareem, Dr. Muyideen Abdulkareem. This afternoon or this evening or morning, I'll be talking about exploring prospects after graduation. That is the prospects that graduates can have immediately after their graduation from the higher institution, be it university, polytechnic, or maybe college of education. Okay, so today I'm basically going to be talking about some or the major prospects that graduates could have. Over here, before we go into the prospects that we have, this topic highlights two major words, that is explore and also prospect. So what do we mean by explore? Explore means for us to search. It could also mean to evaluate, to consider, to find, and also to look into. So what are we actually looking into? And then brings us to the next word, which is the word prospects. So prospects could also be defined as expectations, possibilities, but most importantly, what I would like to focus on are what the opportunities. So this is going to be mainly based on what opportunities do our graduates, especially graduates who are in Nigeria, what opportunities do they really have or could they really grab immediately after their schooling? And then this now brings us to the main prospects that graduates can have immediately after their graduation. I've highlighted about five possibilities or five opportunities here. The first one is for you to get a job, though there are different types of jobs. In the subsequent slides, we'll be talking about all these highlighted prospects in details. So the first one is that you can get a job. The second one is that you can become a self-employed person. You can self-employ yourself, and later on, you might start even also employing other people. Either you go for a postgraduate diploma, you go for a master's degree, or you go for a PhD degree. Another aspect that you can also go into is for you to acquire skills. And people could be wondering that, okay, what kind of skills could we acquire or what are the necessary skills that we can acquire? In the subsequent slides, we will also be talking about this. Then also we can talk about being a volunteer for you to volunteer. So, but when we look at all these prospects that we have, there's one key major thing that we need to understand. And that key major thing is what? Is taking us to the next slide, which is the keyword is to add value. So whatever thing that you intend to do after your graduation, the key point is for you to add value. Either you are getting a job, you get a job, you still need to add value to yourself so that you can be able to retain the job and also get promoted in the job. If you are self-employed, what are you adding value to? Are you creating a product? Are you creating a service? Are you adding value to that service or are you adding value to that product? Or are you doing the same thing that other people have been doing? The third one, which is postgrad to pursue a postgraduate study. Pursuing a postgraduate study is actually a or an example of adding value to yourself. So you're adding value to your knowledge, you're adding value to your skills, and this would make you more employable. And even if you even want to become self-employed, you can easily be self-employed. Acquiring skills. Acquiring skills is also what is also a way of adding value to yourself. And also, when we say volunteer, in some areas or in some places, people might see it as why should I volunteer? But I think when we get to that, we'll also talk about what it actually means, volunteering, and what are the advantages that we could get by volunteering. So the first one, which is for you to get a job, over here, I've actually tried to separate this into two different headings. We have jobs that require specialty and jobs that do not require any specialty. Okay, under jobs that require specialty, we talk of those who study engineering. Definitely, you cannot study any other course and you will be hired as an engineer. Definitely, you have to be hired as you have to have studied engineering, and you can only be hired as an engineer. Another one is about the healthcare sector. We have doctors, we have pharmacists, we have nurses. They also fall under this category. So in this category, you also have to be a specialist in that area for you to get employed or for you to get a job. In ICT as well, in the judiciary, those who study Sharia law or common law or civil law, these people fall under this category. We have the life sciences, earth sciences, and agriculture. These are actually jobs that requires at least a level of specialization from the candidate. So basically, I'm trying to say that it is not going to be, or will I say, it's going to be impossible for I for you who have studied maybe accountancy, or maybe for you who have studied linguistic to be employed as an engineer, or for you who have studied accounting to be employed as a doctor. That is almost impossible. But this is actually, or this slide has actually highlighted jobs that you can only get by specializing in this particular fields. There are actually a couple of or several other fields that are not actually mentioned here. But what are those fields that we can get employed without being a specialist? Okay. So also under getting a job, we can also get jobs whereby we do not require specialty. Under this, I say that we have human resources. Any course that you study, either engineering, sciences, languages, or whatsoever, you could also work in the human resource department of any company, because this is not a job that requires a high level of specialization. In terms of advertising and marketing is also similar. And I was saying that when I was in Nigeria, we do this thing that we call JV, joint venture project, in which we meet, for example, we meet Mr. A. He has a plot of land, and then we have a kind of agreement with him that, okay, with this plot of land, we are going to develop and maybe have a building with 6 apartments, and we could share the apartments at the end of the day, 50-50 or 60-40, depending on the ratio that we agree. So majorly on our own side, we actually sell our own apartments. So, and in doing that, even I, as a civil engineer, I still have to go out to meet people and try to market the building that we have constructed so that we can get buyers and make our own profit. So in terms of marketing and advertising, you do not need to be a marketing graduate to be able to work in a marketing or advertising agency. Also, we talk about banking. I think in Nigeria, there was, I think maybe in the early 2000 or maybe around early 2000, it's being said that the banking sector was the highest employer of labor in Nigeria. So for banking, also, we all know that you see people who are even veterinary doctors, people who are engineers, people who never studied accounting, you know, end up being in the bank. And so many of them are doing quite well. Also, here we have teaching. Teaching is an aspect that is, well, I say that I'm so passionate about because right here now I'm here in Malaysia. I'm a lecturer, which is also like, which I also call teaching. So whatever course you study in your higher institution, you can always be able to get a teaching job, either a teaching job in your own specialized field or a teaching job in a kind of subordinate subject. What I mean by a subordinate subject is this. For example, you studied engineering. If you can get a teaching job or a lecturing job in engineering, or maybe in some schools, maybe secondary schools, you can get a teaching job as maths teacher, physics teacher, chemist or chemistry teacher. Okay, even right here now that I study civil engineering, I'm still taking those who are in foundation physics. Okay, next we talk about management consultancy. So this management consultancy depends on what type of consultancy that we are doing. Generally, when we say management, management is all about effective use of resources, human resources, and other types of resources. Okay. Public relations. I'm not sure if this sector is actually booming in Nigeria, but there's this thing which is being called PR, or would I say um, image. They do call it sort of image laundry. You know, some politicians do use it, some companies use it. It's just a way of portraying the establishment or portraying the person in good light. And to do this, you do not need any specialized degree. All you need to do is to get some little training and experience, and you are good to go. We also have the hospitality industry or the hospitality and travel management. There was a time when I was in Port Harcourt, I was working with a company. This particular company has an agent who handles their flights and also their hotel bookings. Okay. So if, for example, you have a staff traveling from Port Harcourt, traveling to Abuja, if you are the staff, you do not need to do anything. This agent would book your flights, will book your hotel, will do all these things for you. So to do this, you do not have to be a specialist, or you do not need to study what's it called, tourism. You do not need to study that to be able to do this. Also, we talk of sales. Sales, advertising, and marketing, they are kind of intertwined together because when you advertise, you market, the most important thing you want to get is to get sales. Okay? You advertise, you market, but you don't have sales, then it's as good as you have not done any job. So in getting this as well done, you do not need any level of formal education. What you need to do, what you need is your ability to convince, your ability to convince your customer that, yes, you see, this product I'm talking about or this service I'm talking about is the best in town. Lastly, over here we have logistics and supply chains, which actually deals with transportation of especially products or finished products from one place to the other. Okay. The next prospect I want to talk about is, or the next one is being self-employed. Now, with the economic situation in Nigeria, I see a lot of graduates waste so much of their time or so much of their life saying, oh, I'm looking for a job, I don't have a job. I'm looking for a job, I don't have a job. What if you are destined not to work for someone? What if? You know? So when people cry out, I say, I'm looking for a job, I'm looking for a job. Some say, I'm looking for a job for the past 5 years. How on earth can you be looking for a job for the past 5 years? You're in Nigeria, for God's sake. And even with all these ups and downs we have in Nigeria, we still have uh, some advantages because of the way the country is. But when we get to that, we'll talk about that. So to be self-employed, I've also categorized this into two, which are self-employment that requires little or no capital, and at the same time, self-employment that requires some level of or some amount of capital. So to me, the most important one is this self-employment that requires little or no capital. Here I've only highlighted about 6 opportunities here or 6 prospects here. The first one is dropshipping, content writing, tutoring, training, photography, online content creation, and then the last one is caregiver or caregiving. So the first one is dropshipping. This dropshipping is, well, I say it's really, 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 really booming. Okay, either you're in Nigeria or you're outside Nigeria, it is a very, very easy way to get self-employed. And over here, I have a kind of diagram here. This actually involves one, you have your customer at this edge, you have your supplier here, and then you have your store. Okay, your supplier places an order, you go to your store, you pick it up, and then you send to your customer. Now, you could look at this and you say, oh, I need a store. In this, you could actually do it in this way. And in another way, you could actually do it in a very practical way, whereby you have the product advertised to your customers, either through social media. You can use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or whatever other social media platform you want to use. You can even use WhatsApp. You know, you show the product to your customers. The customers places order. When they place the order, they make the payment to you. Then when they place the order to you, you buy the product and you give to them. Very easy. I can give you a very typical example, which is even my own personal wife. My wife, she does something, she does this. She's here in Malaysia. She buys items in Malaysia, and she buys items in Malaysia without even meeting the seller, and she sends to Nigeria to the buyer. She buys item also in Dubai without even meeting the seller, sends to Nigeria, sends to the buyer or to her own customer. She buys item in China. She buys item in Egypt. And as I'm talking to you now, the amount of money she has, I don't even have it. You know, just to show you how lucrative this is. And this is so lucrative And I just want to skip this and bring us to the next, to this picture over here. Nigeria is a population of over 200 million people. So with this, the market is readily available. You know, the next one I want to talk about is content writing. Okay, this content writing, a lot of people might not, especially in Nigeria, might not really know about this. But content writing is a kind of job where I can even say you can have it even as a part-time job. You could even be a student and still have this, or you can even be a student and have any of these six items that I have highlighted here. So this content writing basically is about writing a content or bringing a write-up for those who want to put a content online. For example, about I think last year I was discussing something with one of my friends that I want to come up with a website that says or that brings up a lot of content about the social happenings in Nigeria, state by state. So the first thing that we actually agreed upon was to get a content writer for each of this activity or each of these social events. We need to have a content that will give us details on each of these social events. And with that, we had to get a content writer to do that for us. In some other places, maybe like in the US, I've seen a lady who says that she makes about six figures, over $450,000 in 1 year on just this content writing. Also, we can go into tutoring or training, or the um, the the popular name we call it in Nigeria, we call it lesson training. Okay, so you could also engage in this, and people could actually look at it that, oh, how can I be a lesson teacher? That how much am I going to pay? As I said earlier on, what value are you adding? Aside, what value are you adding? What type of customers are you attracting? Okay, if you attract good customer, if you add good value, you can stand on your price and say, this is what I collect per hour, or this is what I collect per week. Also, we talk about photography. About maybe about 4 weeks ago, I saw a youth copper. I can't remember where he's serving. I think maybe he's serving in Ibadan. And he actually took a picture of a drummer and a Yoruba man with tribal marks with these are Yoruba drums. You know, the one you put beneath your armpit and drum. You know, he took several pictures of that man, went online, sold it, and he even later on went back to the man and gave the man a share of what he made. From the video I saw, he gave the man about 500,000. That the first person who bought the pictures paid him ₦1,000,000. So if you as a graduate, you have your mobile phone, you know, and you say you don't have a job, or you say you are looking for a job, when there are so many things that could be done. Also, we talk about online content creation. This online content creation is more like a kind of social media stuff to give a kind of awareness to people that this company exists and this is what this company does. It's also a way of advertising, but this kind of advertisement is more or less online. And in the situation in which we are now, or will I say in the dispensation in which we are now, even right now that we have so many politicking coming up, politicians, their activities and what have you, this could also be a very good aspect for any graduate to go into. And this is not only just for graduates. Even if you are a student, you are in the university, you can still come up with any of this and be doing it as your own. Is it urgent 2K that is being called that people say now? You can have this as your own side hustle. Instead of asking for urgent 2K, you can easily have this. The last one I want to talk about is caregiver or caregiver. Caregiving, caregiving is, or will I say, I see it as an industry that has not been properly tapped in Nigeria. You see, this actually involves you or involves a person taking care of either an elderly person, or the children of a family. And please don't get me wrong, this is not the same as house girl or house help. Okay, this is different. It depends on the value that you're adding, the problem you are trying to solve, and with this, you'll be able to get a good negotiation. I'll give an example. About 2 years ago or so, you know, I with my wife here, then we had only 2 kids. We were thinking of just having some moments together that, okay, that maybe we should travel and we should just go somewhere, spend a weekend and stuff like that. But the first thing that came to my mind was, what about the kids? Who is going to take care of the kids? But we later ended up getting one of our friends to come and stay with the kids. But in Nigeria, I'm also telling you that there are lots of people who are also looking to do something similar, but who are being hindered by the presence, or by hindered by, okay, who is going to take care of our kids? Who is going to take care of our children? And in this, if it's a weekend, Friday night to maybe Monday morning, you will still be able to do your own conventional thing. The only thing you just need to do is stay with the kids, prepare what they eat, at least if there's a timetable for their food or for their feeding, or this could easily even be discussed with the parents, or even the foods might even would have been prepared by the parents, and all you just need to do is to just warm or microwave it and serve the kids. And at the end of the day, you'll be able to charge your premium. You could charge as much as 10K, or depending on how buoyant the client is. So this could involve you staying weekends, or even, for example, today is Thursday, tomorrow is Friday. Like some couples would like to enjoy a Friday night out, but they have issues. Okay, who is going to stay with the kids? We can't leave the kids, you know. So if this kind of service is available, then you could say, okay, no problem. I stay with your kids Friday night. You pay me 5K or you pay me 10K. So with this, you have a good place to stay. You also have free meals. And lastly, you'll be paid. And most importantly, what is even very important is that you'll be able to build a kind of network that would either help you in getting more jobs in this area, or even network that would even assist you, that will help you in future. Either you are looking for job after graduation, or you are looking for a prospect of furthering your job, furthering your education. Just a way of having good network. So the next one is self-employment that requires capital. Self, these are just a few. Self-employment requiring capital. We talk of agriculture, crop production, and finishing, pottery, clothes and footwear designing, and lastly, we can talk about buying and selling. Okay, over here, the first one I have crop production and finishing. Crop production and finishing, I put this finishing into it because if we look at Africa or we look at Nigeria, well, let's even bring a broader one. We look at Africa, for example. If I ask you, have you ever seen the price of chocolate go down? Anyone here? Have you seen the price of chocolate go down? Anyone? Has the price of chocolate ever gone down? No, the price of chocolate never goes down. It keeps going up. But the problem that you need to know is that the price of cocoa, which is the main ingredient of chocolate, the price of cocoa keeps going down. And so where does the bulk of the profit goes to? It goes to those who are doing the finished products. Those who are producing the chocolate are the ones making the big profits. So the price of cocoa goes down, but the price of chocolate keeps going up. So which means that those who are doing the finishings or doing the finished product are the ones making the big profit. So if you are into crop production, also talk about having the finished products, or else you might end up being in the position of those cocoa farmers who are complaining and complaining and complaining. Another aspect that we can go into is poultry farming, production of eggs, or production of even the meat, as in chicken. Having a huge population, over 200 million, Nigeria is still unable to feed itself. So if you are into agriculture, for example, crop production, or you are into poultry, you already have the market. You do not need to run helter-skelter to look for a market, because it's something to have a product, is another thing to have buyers. Okay, it's another thing to have a market. So if you end up having a very good product but you do not have a market, then what happens? Then you're in trouble. And a similar example is what happened to I think it's salad. But I think that's a story for another day. So it's a different thing for you to have a very good product and not have a market. And you might have a not so good product, but you have a market. Okay. So another one is clothing and footwear making, or clothes and footwear designing. Of recent, I've seen a lot of, especially ladies, going into footwear designing, making shoes, not only in Nigeria, but even in the US. There's a lady I met some time ago. Although this is between she and her husband, but majorly they have a footwear company called Atoms, Atoms, Atoms. So, but the main focus here is focusing on Nigeria and focusing on Nigerian graduates on what they could actually explore. So having a very huge market, having a huge population, then that shows that we already have the market. I had a Cameroonian friend in I think 99 2000 during my master's degree. This guy, he was I think then MTN just moved to maybe MTN moved to Cameroon maybe about 3 years, maybe around 2007. So he was now telling me that, can you imagine that MTN in their country is celebrating having 1 million subscribers? So he now turned to me. He said, but even only in one state in Nigeria that would have MTN will have more than 1 million subscribers. I said yes. That even in Lagos state alone, they have more than 1 million subscribers. He said yes, that he knows that. Look at the population of Nigeria. That is even one of the reasons why music artists, musicians are so wealthy that they have a lot of money that by the time they release an album, that if just 10% of the population or 10% of 10% of the population just buy one copy, and 10% of 10%, 10% of 20 million, of 200 million is 20 million, and then 10% of that 20 million is 2 million. That if only that percentage, small percentage, even buys one copy, that our musicians are already rich. So that is the impact of having a huge population. Then the last one is buying and selling. This buying and selling can be buying and selling of anything. There is someone that I saw on Instagram. This lady buys a product. She sells this product. I will not mention the lady and I will not mention the product. She sells this product at maybe at around 29,000. And the cost of buying and the entire cost that she, or the entire cost of this product to her, to get to her, is less than 20,000. So which means that on every single product of that type that she sells for 29,000, she's making a profit of more than 9K. But that's even one side. The most important thing now is the population. I don't know if you guys are aware that even the richest black man on earth today, who is Aliko Dangote, was formerly doing buying and selling. Previously, Dangote was buying cement from Brazil. He would buy sugar from outside Nigeria and bring them to Nigeria, repackage them, and sell. So previously, Dangote was not producing. Right now, he's producing cement, he's producing sugar. But previously, he wasn't doing all this. He was just doing what? Buying and selling. So buying and selling, either buying locally and selling locally, or buying from outside and selling locally in Nigeria, there is still a lot of profit in it and the market is readily available. Our next prospect that I want to talk about is pursuing a postgraduate study. Pursuing a postgraduate study is actually for you to go out and or try to further your education after your first degree. Over here, you could see this guy being decorated in his PhD robe. And over here, it's me and my family when I was doing my when I was doing my PhD convocation. So this is actually to show you how joyous this moment could be. You could see this guy smiling, so happy, and I was also feeling the same way when I was having my own convocation. So for you to pursue a postgraduate study, over here I have highlighted two postgraduate studies, a master's degree or a PhD degree. And also, I've also tried to put this under two headings: studying at home, that is studying in Nigeria, and also studying abroad. Studying at home, you can further your study by doing an MSc or by doing a PhD. You could also do that abroad. But how do we provide funding for this? Because some students could say that, oh, I don't have money, I don't have sponsors, I don't have this. Firstly, you can finance your postgraduate study in Nigeria by your own personal or by your family funding. This is one aspect. Another aspect that we can do is that we can actually get a research assistant position. Okay, there are some lecturers now in Nigeria who have some amount of money, grants, as we also do have in abroad. They have some amount of money for research, and from this amount of money for research, they can also employ what we call a research assistant. So as you are doing your master's or PhD, you also be a research assistant to your supervisor. So this being a research assistant could entail you to carry out some other activities aside your master's and your PhD work, but just very few not so strenuous, activities. And this could actually be a very good source of funding your postgraduate study in Nigeria. Also in Nigeria, I think now we have um, PTDF scholarship for those who want to study in Nigeria, but I do not have the details on that. For those who want to go abroad, who wants to study PhD or masters abroad, there's a need for you to get some important documents, which are your certificates. For example, if you want to do a master's degree abroad, there's a need for you to get your bachelor degree certificates, your transcripts, bachelor degree transcripts. If you want to do a PhD, so you also need to get your bachelor degree certificate and transcripts. Then if you have done masters, you should also get your master's certificate and your master's transcript. But we should also know that in some universities or in most universities abroad, if you have a first class degree, you could just proceed to do a PhD directly. And in some cases, if you have a second class upper degree, you might be able to proceed to do a PhD directly. Even though on my own personal note, I would not advise people to do PhD directly. I would advise them to still do a master's, then do a PhD. But depending on the choice you have and the opportunities that comes to you. And also with our document as well, there are some countries or some universities that still talks about English language requirements. Although Nigerians are known to be good English speakers, but some universities or in some countries, they are still being requested to have or requested to take English exams. So these English exams fall under two main categories, which are either you take TOEFL. This TOEFL is organized by the Americans, or you take IELTS, which is organized by the British. So whichever one that the school requires, I think maybe some American schools generally, or maybe in most cases, they require you to do TOEFL because TOEFL is it's an American exam. Then some schools also would also accept IELTS, but I'm just saying that TOEFL is majorly an American establishment. Then for funding abroad for your master's or PhD, it's will I say it's it's easy and it is difficult. It's easy in the sense that if you meet the requirements, you do not need to know anybody, unlike in Nigeria, whereby you need to know someone. You don't need to know anybody. That's the easy part. But the difficult part is that you have to compete with so many people. You have to compete with every people from around the world, from China, from South Africa, from even from the host country, from Europe, from Australia, from everywhere. So the funding is it's more transparent. It is easy to know that funding is available, but it is quite competitive, and that brings the difficult aspect. So in terms of our funding, we can either get funding by being a research assistant, as I've mentioned earlier on, carry out research for your supervisor. You could also be a teaching assistant, you are doing a master's degree, then you might have to be taking maybe undergraduate students, maybe tutorials, classes, or whatever kind of arrangement, but this is mainly a kind of teaching arrangement. And if you are doing PhD, then maybe you can be assigned to take some master's student. Another one is to actually get an outright scholarship. An outright scholarship could be from different agencies or could even be from the school. Or the scholarship can even be from within Nigeria, for example, like this PTDF that I mentioned earlier on. And the last one is that you can sponsor this by your own personal funds or funds from your family. Another prospect is for us to acquire skills. Acquiring skills, we could talk about acquiring soft skills, that these are skills that are needed to improve your employability, or we can say skills that are kind of handcraft. Okay, so soft skills increases or improves your employability. Your employer wants to employ you. He sees that yes, this guy has good communication skills, or your employer wants to employ you and he says that okay, let's see how this guy, or if this guy is able to identify and respond to some certain needs upon an understanding of a situation. Okay, in this case, he's trying to say, okay, can this guy think critically to be able to solve some problems? Time management. Also, how are you able to utilize your time perfectly? Okay, you have to complete this task within 2 hours. Are you able to complete it within 2 hours? Okay, leadership. Are you able to harmonize a group of people and you are able to utilize them to achieve the goals of a certain organization? Or are you able to work perfectly in a team? For example, if you look at, for example, like football, you see that football consists, each team has 11 players and each player has their own different roles. So if the keeper messes up, the entire team is messed up. If the striker does not perform his own role perfectly, they will not be able to win the match. Thirdly, or the next one is the use of technology. Are you able to use technology in a very efficient way that is going to enhance your performance? Then the last one here, which I will even encourage all science-oriented graduates to learn, is coding or machine learning. This is actually where the world is going into. Please, if you don't know anything about machine learning or coding, please try to do this. This is especially for those who are in science oriented fields. Okay, if you are in maybe humanities, if you are in linguistics and the rest, you might not need this. But if you are in anything that has to do with sciences, even if you're in agriculture, this is also very, very important because this is where the world is going into. Then we say skills that are kind of hard skills or handcraft. Handcrafts, we have tailoring, we have plumbing, you can learn carpentry, auto mechanics, or being an electrician. A lot of people look down on some of these things, but if, for example, you are thinking of doing a postgraduate study abroad, I will advise you to learn any of this. If you can learn plumbing, you can learn carpentry, or even if you even want to study, if you even want to live abroad, it's very, very good. Or you could even learn, they call it this weaving, how to weave here, especially if you are going to communities or going to countries that has a very large population of black people. Then for you to know how to weave, is very, very, it could be a very life-saving side hustle, you know. For example, I'll give you an example. Some days back, I had an issue with my sink at home. And for me to get a plumber to come and work on it, the plumber would spend maybe 3, maximum 2 hours, and the charge was going to about 250 ringgit, not to buy materials, his own labor fee, 250 ringgit. So if you multiply 250 ringgit times 140, that's how much? That's more than 25,000. Okay, and that shows you what um, that shows you how blue collar jobs are being valued, especially outside Nigeria. And auto mechanics, during my PhD degree, there was a guy. He's from Bangladesh. Yes, Yes, he's from Bangladesh. He's from Bangladesh. His wife came over to do PhD, so he came over with his wife. But what he was doing the mechanics for students on campus. Okay, he was repairing students' vehicles, and he was easily making his own money. So what you should know is that outside, especially outside Nigeria or in developed countries, handcraft or handwork or blue collar jobs are highly valued, and the pay are extremely high. Okay, that's why you hear some people say, do it yourself, DIY, do it yourself. So instead of going to call the plumber, I ended up doing the plumbing work myself. The last one I want to talk about is for you to volunteer. Volunteering actually involves doing a job for free of charge. Okay, people might think that, oh, why should I volunteer? That why should I do this? Now, firstly, if you want to go for a postgraduate study abroad and you are thinking of getting research assistant, teaching assistant, or a scholarship, one of those areas that they will look into or that you'll be scored in will be what? What are the voluntary activities that you've been engaged in? That's one. Two, if you are looking for jobs in some organizations, especially maybe all these foreign NGOs, NGOs, foreign NGOs, or even maybe organizations like the United Nations, ECOWAS, and the rest, if you could actually show that, okay, I have volunteered and this is what we did, or I volunteered to work in this particular group, or I volunteered to work in this particular capacity, then it will also increases your own points or your prospect. And aside even volunteering, or aside even that, when you volunteer, you gain experience. When you volunteer, you'll be able to build a network. Okay. In 1999, I think presently President Buhari is now in Rwanda for this CHOGM, this Commonwealth Head of State meeting, whatever. So I think in 1999, if I'm not mistaken, was it 99? The last CHOGM we had in Nigeria, I had a friend then who was serving in Abuja, and they were actually looking for volunteers to help in the CHOGM organization. And he volunteered. They weren't going to pay it. There was no payment. There was nothing. It was just pure voluntary. And it was during this volunteering job that he was able to meet a diplomat. And it was this diplomat that actually changed his whole life to what he is at the moment. So if you do not have a job, a steady job, or you do not have a job at all, and you are a graduate, you could actually look for agencies, organizations, or where you can volunteer and you can even work for free. And when you do this, at the end of the day, I can assure you that you are not going to regret your actions. So thank you very much, and I think I'm able to keep up to my time and manage my time properly. So please, if there are any questions or you have any discussions that you want to ask, please, we still have about 3 more minutes, and then we can have that right now.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
I have a question,
Yes,
sir.
yes, thank you very much.
Okay, I want
Okay,
to
I want
ask.
to ask.
You said you advise someone to go for a master's before PhD abroad. I
Yes.
want to ask, is there any reason for that?
Okay, there is a reason for this. Okay, based on my own experience, I came here, or first time I came to Malaysia was in 2009. I came to study a master's in structural engineering. And you see, my master's in structural engineering, or for masters, there's this thing we call masters by third course or masters by research. By third course, you go to class like the normal undergraduates, and then you have a research that you do. By research, you do not go to class. You only do research fully. But at the same time, if you are doing by research, in some universities, they provide the opportunities for you to take some courses that you go to class. So the thing is this now. If you are an undergraduate or you finish your first degree in Nigeria and you jump over to do a PhD, now the master's courses that are being taught, how are you going to be able to know those things that are being taught in the master's level? Considering that even as we all know, we might not want to agree with it, the background that we have from Nigeria is even weak compared to the background that we have in developed countries. So if you are jumping from your bachelor degree, you have a first class, good, and you go to do a PhD, the gap, the masters that you have decided not to do, how will you be able to understand, or how will you know what is being taught in master's level? Do you understand my answer or my reason?
Yes, sir. Yes, I do.
So
Thank you, sir.
if there's any civil engineer here, for example, during my master's degree, we were being, or even if during my master's degree, we learned things on earthquake design, which we do not have in bachelor degree. During my master's degree, we learned designing of tall building, we learned designing of bridges, we learned designing of some steel structures. In fact, we learned a lot of things, but these are not available in our bachelor degree. Even bachelor degree here, they are all not available. Okay, I can see some other people's hands are up. Ajayi Ayodeji. Yes, Ajayi Ayodeji.
Okay. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir. I want to ask a question. There is one that I made a research on, and then the question was like, for US, it is possible to do a PhD, and the PhD is going to be like 5 years. Now,
Yes.
is combining of masters and the PhD, is that one also still okay to go on? Like one is going to be entering for PhD straight up, but in that then within PhD and the masters, is it advisable to go for something like that?
Yes, that one is acceptable. I think in the in US, their own their own style for PhD is that if you enter for PhD, you are going to do what they call MS. You do MS, then you also do PhD. But if you already have a PhD in the US, for example, if you already have an MSc in the US, for example, if you finish from Nigeria, you go to the US to do MSc, You finish your MSc from maybe University of Texas, then you want to go to University of California for your PhD. In that situation, you will not need to do MS again. But if, for example, you do your first degree in Nigeria, you do your master's degree in Malaysia, or you do it in the US, or you do it in the UK, then you want to go to the US for a PhD. Yes, you do it, but you are going to spend maybe about 5 years, and I think the first 2 years or the first 1 year is going to be for your MS. And with that, you also write an exam. I think they call it, I can't remember the name that is being called, a kind of um, um, maybe continuation exam also, that after the first year or maybe the first 2 years, you write your exams that will give you your MS. Then based on that result, they now say, okay, proceed for your PhD or not. You know. So, but that one too is okay, since you are still going to do an MS before you do your PhD. But for example, in Malaysia, in the UK, and also I think in Australia, you know, they accept people with first class to do PhD, but not that they will do MS, like a master's first before starting PhD. They admit them directly into PhD. But in the case of US, you are going to US, you do not have a master's in US, then you are not being admitted directly for PhD. You do MS first, then you continue with your PhD. Okay? Uh, yes, Ololayemo.
Sir.
Yes, yes.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Yes, I can
I
hear you
said
now.
thank you for the teaching. It's very implicit and loaded. I say a well of knowledge will not run dry, sir.
Amen, amen, amen. Thank you very much.
Concerning the research assistant, I want to ask you about that, sir. What are the criteria for someone to become a research assistant, and how can someone become a research assistant? I need detailed information about that.
Okay, well, to become a research assistant, the requirement, it actually varies from schools to school, or from
Okay,
maybe supervisor to supervisors,
okay,
or maybe department to department. But to become a research assistant, generally, research assistant means that you are assisting in research from the name, which means, firstly, the person or your supervisor needs to have a grant. Okay, that's number one. Then number two, you must have an admission letter, or you must have admission to the school, or
Yes.
you are presently a student in that school. Then thirdly, you have to speak to the supervisor himself, to the professor, or maybe to the senior lecturer, or to the associate professor. At least you have to speak to the lecturer, to the supervisor himself, and he tells you that he has a grant. Then in that way, he'll be able to take you as a research assistant.
Okay, sir.
So it is not as if that maybe you need to have certain grade. No, it actually depends on for the research assistant, it actually depends on the lecturer. For example, I have a grant. I have the right or the power to appoint anybody that I want to appoint as my research assistant. But the person has to be maybe a student, existing student, or the person has already gotten admission.
I see.
You understand? Especially
Yes.
for this, we call it graduate research assistant. And this is mainly for those who want to go from Nigeria to maybe to another country to study. They can get this research assistantship, or in some places they call it graduate research assistant.
I see.
Okay, Abdulaziz
Thank
Oni. Oh, do you have another question, Olo Laimon?
Sir, concerning the previous question asked by the other person, that one that I
Okay.
said master can be done straight like that for 5 years.
Yeah.
So if someone go for PhD can be done, PhD is done together with master. We there also for if someone go for that enroll for that type of program in US, we there give the person both the masters and the PhD certificate.
Down, I think so. If I'm not mistaken, I think so. Because if you look at this, sorry, am I still sharing my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That,
So
that's not
if
bad.
you look at here, those who study, who go in that case, they'll have this MS like this. They'll have MS, then they have PhD. You see that they are being addressed in this way. They have MS, then PhD. So I believe that they would be given a master's certificate. But even if they are not given a master's certificate, if you already have a PhD certificate, you don't need to bother yourself so much about having a master's certificate. What I'm just bothered
Okay.
about is that knowledge that you gain during the master's period.
Program.
Yes, during the master's program.
Okay, thank you
Okay.
very much, sir.
Abdulaziz Oni.
Yes, good day, sir. Can you
Good
hear
afternoon.
me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, sir. I wanted to ask about living in a country like Malaysia. I mean, how is the cultural situation, language barrier, if there's any? How did you cope as a Nigerian?
Okay. Well, my coming to Malaysia, I came to Malaysia first in 2009, and I went back to Nigeria after my master's in 2010, and then came back in 2014 for my PhD. But I'll talk about my coming in 2009 because coming in 2014, I already had the experience. So coming in 2009, I was quite young, and that was my first time traveling out of Nigeria alone. So it was a little bit challenging for me. And that time in my school, we had only about 36 Nigerians then. So we had very few Nigerians. So in a nutshell, coming to Malaysia, their major language here is Malay, Malay. However, English is highly used or highly spoken. So when you get to the airport, the officials at the airport can speak English, though Malay is their major language, they can speak English. In the universities as well, they also speak English. The medium of teaching in all the universities are all English. Okay, so since I was in an educational system or in an educational environment where English is being spoken, I did not have any problems with the English. The only problem I had initially was their accent. I could remember the first class I attended when the lecturer was speaking, I was like, is this person speaking English or what is this saying? He was speaking English, but because of his accent, I did not hear what he was saying. And the same thing too also goes to me. I can remember then in 2009 when I first came, when I was anytime I speak to my classmates, they tell me, "Oh, please, Karim, you speak too fast. Please slow down, slow down." Some of them even tell me that I speak like Americans, that I speak so fast. you know. So those are, or will I say, these are some of the things that you see, even if you go to the UK or to the US. But one of the major challenge that I had then was that the type of food, anywhere you go to, even in Nigeria, if you even go to some places, you might not be so much comfortable with their food. So with regards to their food here, initially I had issues because in Asia generally, especially this part of Asia, their major food is rice, spaghetti and indomie. Rice, then spaghetti, then indomie. Then another aspect they have is that even their food, when ask them, oh, how is this food? Is it delicious? They say, yes, it's sweet. By the time you taste it, you realize that the sweet that they mean is that sugar is added into it. So you can imagine taking white rice and taking stew. But the stew, instead of adding salt, it is sugar. You understand? Or even the rice itself containing sugar. So these are some of the challenges that you might face maybe anywhere you go to. But in terms of the weather here is similar to the weather in Nigeria. But if you go to some other countries, maybe you go to Europe or America, please get your winter coats because their weather might not be friendly to you when you get there. So any other questions from anyone? Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, sir. Sir, there's a question from David Echendu, but I don't think he's on the call anymore. Okay, David, you're on the call now.
Okay, David is here, but I think his mic is... Okay, yes, I can hear you, David.
In Nigeria here, for example,
okay,
professional bodies like the medicine and the law profession, they have an organized system that immediately after graduation, there's always an internship that helps improve graduates from that particular profession. But as a civil engineer, or most of the engineering professionals, students in Nigeria after graduation, we hardly find one way or the other officially in an organized system that will get internship that help us to improve our own skill system, that allows us not to become seekers of jobs, but rather to create employment opportunities for others. Sir, while you were in Nigeria, was there any attempt to make things easy for the engineering graduates, sir?
Okay, well, actually, let me speak. Please allow me to speak pidgin. What can a small boy like me do, if I may say? You see, when I graduated in 2005, and I left for Malaysia first in 2009. So I graduated 2005, served 2006, 2007, and 2 years after my graduation, I came to Malaysia. So you could see that even as at then, I was still a baby engineer. Okay, I went back to Nigeria in 2010. That was when I just joined NSC, Nigerian Society of Engineers. And after that, I became a registered engineer, I think maybe in 2012 or so, because I joined in NSC 2011. Then I registered as a Korean registered engineer in 2012. But this thing that you have said, we've actually tabled, or I have even tabled this to some of my colleagues, especially at the NSC, that come. Nigerian engineers are being pushed to the back, especially when we compare our contribution to national development. You compare it to the doctors, you compare it to the lawyers. Why is it that when they look back, they do not even see us? We are far away from them. And one of those things that needs to be done, even aside having a unified remuneration in terms of salary, there's even a need to provide for training. But the responses that I've mainly been getting is that the training has to be done by the universities. And I could also remember in my university days, we also put something like this, a similar question, but in this case, it was in terms of using software. We placed it to our head of department then. And what he said was that softwares can be learned after graduation. So what we have said is a thing of major concern and is something that we should take seriously. However, the situation in which we find ourselves, especially with our NSC, which is our Nigerian Society of Engineers, and maybe I would also say Korean, they have not been able to come with a unified approach on how to give engineers better training. But what I would say to any engineering graduate is this: if you graduate today, know that you are just being given your certificate. Is just that it's like you are given a certificate to start learning civil engineering, or to start learning engineering, not to start practicing engineering, to start to learn. So if you graduate today, maybe you have completed your service or you have not completed your service, the first thing I will advise any young engineer to do is try to get for those who are in civil engineering, try to get a consultancy firm. Even if you are going to work for next to nothing, try to take that as your training stage. Okay? If you work there for 1 year, 2 years, I can assure you that you will have had a lot of experience in terms of designing, in terms of detailing, and even in terms of constructing or in terms of supervising. Because in school, they'll teach you, okay, this is how to design. That's even if you are taught all the design, this is how to design. Then how do you detail? That's another aspect. If you're also being taught how to detail, when you get to site, how is that detailing? How is it going to be executed on site? Because it's a different thing for you to have the right design, have the right detailing. Is another thing entirely for those who are on site to do the right thing. So if you have a fantastic design, fantastic detail, but those executing it on site are doing garbage or are doing rubbish, then you end up having a very terrible result. So this will be my own advice to those who are young graduates. If you are not going for a postgraduate degree, if you are not going for a postgraduate degree, or if you do not get a job, if you are not going for a postgraduate degree, if you are going to self-employment, or if you want to acquire skills, or if you want to be a volunteer, then please try as much as possible to get a job in a consultancy firm. And I repeat, a consultancy firm is quite important for beginners. A consultancy firm to learn the aspect of design. Okay. If you do maybe a year, 2 years, a year is even small, maybe 2 years, you've gathered enough knowledge, then you can move elsewhere if the pay is not good. And even if you are working and assuming the pay is not good, if it's even going to make it easy, very easy for you to move from that firm or that company to another company whereby you'll be able to get a good pay, or even it's even going to be easier for you to move from a consultancy firm to a construction firm. Does that answer your question, Shuaib Yusuf? Someone wanted to ask a question before this person. I think is Dave. Is David still here? David is gone.
Yeah. I'm still on the call. Can you hear me?
Okay. David, please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing such an insightful knowledge, and you've really dealt with so many aspects of how we can basically transit. Also,
Sorry, David, please
several
can you speak
projects.
louder, please?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So my question quickly is, you spoke about some content um, creators, and I just want to ask: is there any um, platform that one can actually upload such content, and what is more like the benefits? Like, can you earn by just uploading your content on a particular platform? And also, for one that is aspiring to continue, maybe going further apart from his first degree, how can we reach out to professors for funding, and how do we get them to know that we are interested in what they are maybe doing? And thirdly, like one of us asked about research, how do you develop that research skills if you want to be a research assistant, or you want to use that as a means to get funding? Thank you, sir.
Okay, this person wants to use one stone to kill three birds, but it's actually good. Okay, the first question goes about content creation. Um, Content creation, if you want to go into that, a very good platform that you can use is our social media. You can use Facebook, you can use Twitter, you can use Instagram, you can use YouTube. I don't know if you know, there's one guy they call Tayo Aino. They call him Tayo Aino Films. If you check him on, let me type him here. His name is Tayo Aino. Tayo Aino Films. Tayo Aino Films. He's actually a very good content creator based in Nigeria. He talks so much about everything and anything. As far as it's a good content that is going to bring out what is going to bring out the positive sides of Nigeria or of Africa. He's had videos of Rwanda, videos of Zanzibar, of Ghana, South Africa, Nigeria, videos of even this. There's a guy, Mr. Kunle Adeyanju, who just rode a motorcycle from the UK to Lagos. I don't know if you're aware of that guy. I just watched his video today. So this is actually a very good opportunity. And I don't know, do you know this person, Dele Momodu? Dele Momodu, with his
Yes, sir.
own Ovation, if you know Ovation magazine, Ovation magazine itself is also a way of creating content, because all what Ovation does then, I don't know if they are still operating now, was to go get clients, cover their events, and put them in a very good magazine, take pictures and all these things, and sell. But now we are in the world of social media now. You don't need, because in case of Dele Momozu's case or Ovation's case, you need a huge amount of money. But in this case, you might not really need any huge amount of money. Since you can have your mobile phone and you have maybe 2K or 1K for your data, then you can do that. A very typical one I can give you is this. Our politicians at the moment, so many of them are coming up with, okay, maybe we are looking for a second term or we are looking for a new term. If you could actually make, although there might not be need for you to meet them at first, but if you could get information about them, pictures, videos, and all these things, you could upload it online. And when you upload it online, it is very, very, very certain that these people will have interest and they will try to contact you. And when they contact you, then at that time, you can start negotiating price. That, okay, you know what? I'm going to create some content for you. I'm going to make your presence known online, your activities, where you go, and all these things. Just give me the information. I'll produce the content for you, and you see them online, and they are going to pay you. That's for the first question. The second question you asked about research. I'm not sure. Is it research assistant? You talk about the second question or what?
I said research assistants, the
And the third
skills
one is
needed,
what?
how to reach out to professors for funding and maybe get them to know that you're interested in what they are doing.
Okay. You see, to be a research assistant or a graduate research assistant, let me put it in the normal, in the academic way. To be a graduate, there's a difference between a graduate research assistant and a research assistant. A graduate research assistant is one who is doing master's degree and also working. That one is higher than a research assistant. A research assistant might not need to be doing a master's. You can just employ the person and, okay, come and assist me to carry out research. But in our own case, especially we in Nigeria, that especially so many of us want to go abroad, we will fall under the category of graduate research assistant. So now, for a graduate research assistant, first thing you have to do, or even graduate research assistant slash this getting a supervisor, is that the first thing you need to do is try to contact a potential supervisor. When you contact that potential supervisor, that, okay, I'm interested in doing my PhD or master's under your supervision. I studied blah 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 blah. But one very important aspect that you need to state is, if, for example, you are sending me an email and you want to be my graduate research assistant, you can't just send me an email and say, oh, I want to be your graduate research assistant, and that is all. I will not even, if I read it, I'll just delete your email. But what I'll advise you is, any single person that you want to send an email to, go ahead and search. When you see the person's email or you see the person in the university website, try to check what type of research is that person doing. When you check the research that person is doing, go to Google Scholar, SCH, Google Scholar, and type the person's name. Okay, if you type the person's name, for example, you type this person's name, you click on his name, then this is cited by, this is the year. You can click on the year. This is 2022. So with this, you can see the papers that person or his research year by year. And I will advise you to look for papers in which maybe he is the first author, or he's the second author, or he's the corresponding author. Okay, I will show you that as well. You see, the person we just checked now, his name is Saidu Rahman. This is his name. You can see that he's not the first author, he's not the second author. And then you can see these authors with an envelope. Those are the corresponding authors. You could either have one corresponding author or multiple corresponding authors. So when you check, let me look for another one. Maybe I can see one in which he's the where he's the corresponding or main author. This one too, he's not the corresponding author. Okay, wait, just let me go back and let me check. Okay, for example, this is my own profile. If you click on this, you see that I am not the first author, I'm not the corresponding author. If you go back, if you check on this, for example, you see that in this, I am the first author and I'm also the corresponding author. So being the first author or being the corresponding author means that that person has contributed a lot to that paper, which also means that that person would have a huge knowledge about that research. And then what you can then do is to read one or two of that supervisor's paper, one or two of his papers, you read them. Then when you're sending an email, you could then say that I'm interested in your work. I read this paper that you worked on, this, and this. And I'll be interested if I could work further on this topic you could state any other method, either maybe if we could improve using machine learning algorithm, or if we could extend it to another type of structure, or if, for example, you are working on maybe you are working on all these biosciences, if the supervisor has worked on fungi, you might say, okay, that this method, is it possible to extend it to bacteria? Just to show that you know what the lecturer research area is all about, what he's doing, and to also show to him that you have interest and you have interest, or you know what you have interest in. So not just sending email that, okay, I want you to be my supervisor or I want to be your student. No, that's not enough. So a very easy way to get a potential supervisor or to get someone to employ you as a research assistant or a GRA, graduate research assistant, is to follow this procedure. So if the supervisor now has grants, he could now say, okay, send me your CV, or maybe you could have even sent your CV and your transcript to him earlier on, or maybe he could then send you an email and say, okay, let's have a discussion, or maybe he wants to interview you or what have you. Then the last question that you asked about, how do we carry out research, right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, you see, how to carry out research, there's this saying that we say that one husband and 4 wives, 1 H, 4 W. 1 H, the H means how, the 4 W, what, why, when and whom. Okay, to carry out a very good research, you have to be able to answer at least the first 4. That is how, what, why, when. Now, in terms of research, why are you doing the research? Because I'm doing this to solve this problem of COVID-19. How are you going to do it? We are going to do it, or I'm going to do it by trying to use a vaccine that is so, and so. If then I ask you, what is this research about? This research is all about providing vaccine for COVID. So if you are doing any research and you are unable to answer at least 4 of these, then your research might not be heading the correct way. But I'll also say, for you to carry out any research, or for you to be a good researcher, you should try to look at those that have been very, very good researchers. Very good researchers in the sense that, what papers have they written? Look for their journal papers. Read their journal papers. Look at how they have written their journal papers. Look at how they carried out their own experiments. If it's experiments, if it's numerical using software, or even if it's the use of questionnaire, look at how they did theirs. So if you look at how they did theirs, there is no crime in you mimicking or following a similar pattern to carry out your own research. Okay? But the most important thing is that whatever research that you want to do, this first 4, or if not the 5, needs to be given a very good technical answer. The how, the what, the why, the when, and also the whom. The whom might not be so needed, but at least the how, the what, and the why. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you so much for your response. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So, if there are no more questions, then maybe we should call it a day, right?
Yes, sir. Can call it a day, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms.
Thank you very much.
Olua Bemisola, and thank you everyone for attending. And I wish you guys a wonderful week and weekend ahead.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time.
You're welcome.